Very fine. Blazzy, blazzy, blah, blah. Thanking you. After this puzzle, I'm going to take a little break and probably do one on the diamond dot or something else. So I've been thinking I might start drawing again. That is my plan, but I don't know yet. So I want to get back into drawing again, which I was already thinking about doing anyway. So just after this, I think. I never thought the dreams came true. And some things really do. And I know that baby every day I love. Hello, Slot Savvy. Hello, Patrick. How are you doing? How is everyone doing? I'm doing feeling hot. To be honest with you, Slot Savvy, this is driving me nuts. But I'm never giving up. Didn't say I wasn't gonna never give up, but I'll get it finished, even if it takes as long as it's taking. Hot. That's all I can say with Patrick. Hot flushes is no fun at all. I've been going through it all week. It is a train. It's a train at a train station, or two trains at a train station. It's one of these. And the reason why it's taking longer, because one, this is a very old puzzle, and two, the puzzle is made from I think it's made from oil colour work. The photo. Yeah, it has been tough. I was ready to give up, but I'm not going to, because I've done so much so far. Yeah, I'm not familiar with oil colour work. You know, the oil paintings and things like that, because this is a very old puzzle and it looks like it's oil colour. I'm only familiar with watercolour and acrylic that I've learned a lot of, but love you too. Love you too, Slot Savvy. I have been listening. I've been listening in when you go live, but I haven't been in. I've just been watching on Gary's on Gary's screen when he's in there. So it's like at the moment I have been hiding, so to speak. But this week it's just a bit different because I'm early. Apparently it's in early stages of menopause, but I don't know until Wednesday. So yes, you do. Yes, you do. I've seen that notification. I mean, you know, the community post thingy. Another good thing is I'm going to be learning about tarot reading. Because I have myself on a packet of tarot cards that I got. And a friend of mine is willing to spend some time with me and teach me how to use them. So watch this space, Meneer. No, I don't want to exercise my brain. My brain's at it. Yeah, there's a notification. Yeah, so I'm going to be learning a lot on tarot reading. So yeah, I've known my dear friend of mine for yonks, and I haven't had a video call with her before. So it was just via messenger. And I've known her for a long time. So I trust her. Trust her loads. She's a funny bugger though, but she's doing an investigation tonight, so looking forward to that. We're both have been into the paranormal world, so it's something that I like the most. Well, I was going to do the garden today, but obviously the heavens have opened up. And Mum and Dad decided to do a water fight. Well, that's what I got told when I was little. You light a match, it starts lightning. You're moving if it's thundering, you're moving furniture. If it's snowing, you're having a pillow fight. And if it's windy, I don't know about that one, but other than that, I'm not fed a load of crap. That was my parents for you. And my nanny. And the heavens did open up. If it's raining, you're having a water fight. Literally. Here comes the sunshine. I never thought that dreams came true. That's something from it with never thought that dreams come true. Every day. So I hope Slot Savvy is doing well.
Hey kitty, would you like a treat? Have you fed it?
No, not yet.
Dinner. Dinner, don't you?
Excuse me.
Put your dinner bowl with yourself. You a treat? Yeah, you're a good girl. You're the belly go. Come on. Yeah, now. Ow! There you go.
This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have
Vic,
participated
hold on.
in recreating the events. What you are about
Good
to
girl.
see is not a news broadcast.
Good girl.
This man calls himself Jose Antonio Gonzalez,
Sorted.
but that is a known alias. He is a convicted
That's
bank
not
robber
savvy.
and a man without a past. Since his arrest in 1990, Gonzalez has refused to reveal his true identity or any other detail about his shadowy life. On June 30th, 1991, Larry Williams walked into his son's house and into a nightmare. Danny Williams was dead from a single bullet wound to his forehead.
Sister.
At first glance, an obvious suicide. But Larry Williams has collected convincing evidence that indicates his son may have been murdered. In 1978, a young pilot named Frederick Valenti took off from Moorabbin Airport in Australia. 47 minutes later, a frantic Valenti radioed that he had encountered a bizarre light source. Then the radio transmissions abruptly ceased and the plane vanished as if plucked from the sky.
All the bread's gone.
Join me for another edition of Unsolved Mysteries.
Hi, Patrick. Oh, you're doing a bit.
Mhm.
Nah.
Nah.
Anchorage, Alaska, December 11th, 1990. At 3 p.m., two bank employees arrived at a local mall to restock an automated teller machine. The security guard took the cash into a small, secluded room behind the machine, while the teller went outside to reprogram the ATM.
Open the door. Don't turn around. Do exactly what I say, and you won't be hurt. Do you understand?
Yes.
Open the door. Hey, put your hands above your head. Into the room. You, over here. You, open the vault. Turn around.
There was nothing about this robbery that could have happened that this individual wasn't prepared to handle. He knew the entrance into this back room, back hallway, in order to get into the teller machine. He knew that no one could see him from there.
Put the money in the bag. Put your hands behind your back.
And he knew exactly what it took in order to open up the machine, where the money was stored inside a machine, and also instructed the teller to take a videotape out of the video machine so as not to be caught on film.
Get the surveillance tape now.
The robber also had a small smile on his face, which the guard thought was a little peculiar. The guard believed that this robber was very relaxed.
I know what your name is. I know where you live. Do you understand? Both of you, silent for 5 minutes.
The FBI believed the robbery was an inside job, even though the two employees had not recognized their assailant. Suspicion immediately fell on a former security guard named Jose Antonio Gonzalez, who was already being investigated in connection with a similar robbery. But Gonzalez had conveniently disappeared.
As my sister did.
2 days later, in Redmond, Washington, 1,500 miles south of Anchorage, a postal worker noticed a partially open package.
Oh, wait a minute. This one's torn. Wait a minute. Looks like a gun in there.
The address that was on top of the box was an address to a gentleman named Jose Antonio Gonzalez in Redmond, Washington. The return address was Anchorage, Alaska.
Hey, Jim?
A second box was later found in the same shipment, also addressed to Jose Antonio Gonzalez. Postal inspectors obtained a warrant to search both boxes and discovered a small arsenal.
38, loaded.
Look at this. Glock. Loaded as well.
Beretta, loaded.
And what do we have here? Money.
The postal inspectors also found cash, $65,540, the exact amount taken in the Anchorage ATM heist.
Make sure he gets an 1849, and we'll just wait for him.
Postal inspectors set up what they call a controlled delivery, in essence a sting operation. On December 14th, 1990, just 3 days after the robbery, Jose Gonzalez stepped right into their trap.
Okay, thank you very much.
Back away from the car. Get down your knees.
Gonzalez was charged with armed bank robbery and 4 counts of illegal transportation of firearms using the U.S. mail. Once in custody, Gonzalez was cooperative, perhaps too cooperative. Without prompting, he told authorities his life story. Born in Puerto Rico, graduated from Knickerbocker High School in New York City, attended West Virginia University. Gonzalez then rattled off his social security number, his date of birth, and other vital statistics.
Thank you. Fingerprints over here.
This man was almost too good with his background. Everything was right there on the tip of his tongue. From where he went to high school to where he was brought up.
Unfortunately, nothing Gonzalez said was true. There was no Knickerbocker High School, and no one named Jose Antonio Gonzalez had ever attended West Virginia University. His social security number did seem legitimate, until the FBI discovered he had 2 of them. One belonged to a boy who was 11 years old. It was clearly fraudulent. But the other had been issued to a Jose Antonio Gonzalez born in 1952.
Maybe later.
Where were you born?
Puerto Rico.
We located a birth certificate in Puerto Rico under the name that he said he is, Jose Antonio Gonzalez. But then 11 days later, after the birth of Jose Antonio Gonzalez, that child died of tetanus, and we have the death certificate. So we know who he is not. We don't know who he is.
Hey, when did you come to the United States?
Under interrogation, Gonzalez continued to embroider the facts. His already elaborate background became more and more exotic.
You ever been in the service?
Yes, I have.
What branch?
French Foreign Legion.
French Foreign Legion?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez indicated that he would, a former French Foreign Legionnaire, that he'd been in the Legion for approximately 5 years, that he'd seen action in Chad and Beirut. He claimed to be a martial arts expert and an expert with various types of weapons.
Paro con mucho antipasión.
Gonzalez was full of surprises. While he was awaiting trial, the authorities discovered that he was fluent in at least 4 different languages.
Sí. Ti diré sobre metal.
And here we have an individual who speaks, apparently writes, and is very functional in English, Spanish, French, and some type of Croatian dialect. But he conversed with these people freely, very easily. The man was not your run-of-the-mill bank robber. The more we kept digging into this gentleman's background, the more mystery surrounded him.
On October 15, 1992, the enigmatic Mr. Gonzalez was convicted of armed bank robbery and sent to the Sheridan Federal Penitentiary in Oregon. But even with Gonzalez safely behind bars, the case continued to fascinate investigators. The only possible key to the prisoner's true identity lay with 2 mysterious women, both of whom vanished before they could be questioned.
Hi, can I help you?
Yes, I'm here to pick up the car for Jose Gonzalez.
After Gonzalez was arrested, his car was impounded by the Redmond police. The next day, a woman showed up to claim it.
Get that from his attorney.
Yes, I don't understand. He asked me to come and pick up his car. Is there a problem?
Yes, ma'am. I need what's called an authorization for release, and you can get that from his attorney.
I cannot get the car at all without the authorization.
No, you can't.
According to the police, the woman was an intimate acquaintance and possibly an accomplice of Gonzalez. She went by the name Nadine Castell and had known Gonzalez for at least 3 years before he went to prison.
She has always been around Mr. Gonzalez. At times, she has introduced Mr. Gonzalez as a brother, as a lover, and as a friend. She's never worked that we can find. Always drove very expensive cars, always dressed in very expensive clothes. Nadine appears to be the person who arranges for and acquires identification for Mr. Gonzalez. She's always there, almost like somebody that looks over him and has the documentation that he would need. She has disappeared, absolutely disappeared, as far as we know, in the United States.
Nadine Castell is 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighs around 125 pounds, and has dark hair and eyes. She is a French national who has lived in London and the United States. She sometimes uses the last names of Gotham and Cartel. Another woman, who police believe might also be an accomplice, has been positively identified. Brenda Penninger was Gonzalez's girlfriend at the time of the robbery. A few days after Nadine's unsuccessful attempt to pick up the car, Brenda Penninger showed up at the impound lot with all the right papers. The FBI, anticipating her arrival, had asked the impound lot attendant to serve her with a subpoena.
Is that Brenda Penninger?
That's right.
I've been asked to give this to you.
What is it?
That's a subpoena, so you'll come before the grand jury.
Incredibly, just 3 days later, the car would be found 2,400 miles away in a parking lot at the Newark, New Jersey airport.
We have to this day never located Miss Pettinger. We've talked to her mother. We've talked to everyone that we knew that had contact with her. And there has been no contact that we can verify since that day, 3 days after she picked up the car. She's gone. We don't know where she's at, and we don't know her fate.
Brenda Pettinger is 5 feet 9 inches tall, weighs 145 pounds, and has blonde hair and blue eyes.
It's a bit green.
Update. The mystery robber has been identified, thanks in part to a viewer tip. His name is Milorad Zivkovic, 27-year-old Yugoslavian national, who was apparently born in France. After the broadcast, authorities also located and questioned Zivkovic's two female friends. Neither has been charged with any wrongdoing in this case. As for the mysterious Zivkovic, investigators are still hoping to discover more about his shadowy past.
Oh,
next,
look at that.
A dramatic account of a young pilot's
stood
close
here a
encounter
second.
with
I'm
most
seeing pieces
mysterious
already.
kind.
Ain't he clever?
October 21st, 1978, 6:19
We
p.m.
tried that loads of times and we're not going to hit and
The
get
continent
there.
of Australia. A single
You
engine
never
Cessna
know.
182 lifted off from Moorabbin
Until you
Airport,
try.
just south of Melbourne. The pilot was 20-year-old Frederick Valentic. Valentic had been flying for 2 years, accumulating more than 150 hours of solo time. He had dreams of one day becoming a commercial airline pilot.
Well, look where that symbol is.
Valentic's flight plan called for a 40-minute trip west along the Australian coast. At Cape
Where's that
Otway,
symbol?
he would head south for a half-hour run over Bass Strait to King Island.
Over here.
It was a route he had followed on several occasions, but this
If you
flight
look on the
would be
box where
anything
it
but
is,
routine.
it's on the back of the tank.
It was a fairly normal exercise. He had an appropriate instrument rating for the trip.
There.
It was a very straightforward flight. And, I mean, I could see no reason why it shouldn't have been concluded successfully. What happened 3/4 of an hour into that flight, I think will be one of the great mysteries of Australian aviation.
Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. Is there any known traffic below 5,000?
Delta Sierra Juliet, no known traffic.
Delta Sierra Juliet, there seems to be a large aircraft below 5,000.
There you go. There's
Says
another
just
piece.
over halfway through his flight, Valentic had been in contact with a flight service center on the
It
ground.
is, isn't it?
Evidence mounted that something was not quite right. The following recreation is based on the
Can I
transcript
smack
of
him?
Valentic's exchange with an air traffic controller.
It seems to be like some sort of landing lights. As it gets closer, it's... could be 1 or 2 lights, I don't know. Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. That aircraft's just passed over me at least 1,000 feet above.
Roger, and it is a large aircraft, confirm.
Unknown due to the speed at which it was travelling. Is there any Air Force aircraft in this vicinity?
Delta Sierra Juliet, no known aircraft in the vicinity.
Delta Sierra Juliet, seems though he's playing some sort of game up here. He's travelling over at me at 2 and 3 times at speeds I cannot identify.
Can you describe the aircraft?
Delta Sierra Juliet. As it passes by, it's a long shape.
He wasn't to the point where he was panicking, but he was genuinely concerned by what he saw. You know, with what he saw, he was worried. He sounded confused. Then, as he described what the aircraft was doing, you know, I became a little bit concerned too.
Melvin, this thing's just stationary. What I'm doing now is orbiting, and this thing's just orbiting on top of me. It's got a green light. It's sort of metallic. Like it's shiny all over. It's just disappeared.
Attack.
But you wouldn't know what sort of aircraft I've got up here, would you? Is this some sort of military aircraft or what?
Is the aircraft still with you?
Delta Sierra Juliet. Now approaching from southwest. Delta Sierra Juliet. Engine's just gone into rough idle. I've got it set on 2324 and this thing's just coughing.
Delta Sierra Juliet.
Melvin, this strange aircraft's just hovering on top of me again. It's hovering and it's not an aircraft.
Suddenly, an unidentifiable clicking noise came over the radio. The sound lasted 17 seconds, then silence.
Delta Sierra Juliet. This is Melbourne.
I had streamed out as to his safety.
Melbourne, come in, please.
Flying a single-engine aeroplane over water, lost communication in such strange circumstances. I put an alert phase on the aeroplane, and once that had elapsed, we then went to the distress phase stage, and that was the commencement of the search.
About 11:30 or midnight, Frederick wasn't at home. And then we heard on the radio that an aircraft went missing. And then 2 policemen called at the door, and they verified, yes, they said that aircraft presumably was your son. It's an extended search, and we don't know what's happened to him.
For 4 days, a flotilla of search vessels crisscrossed Bass Strait. There was absolutely no sign of Atlantic or his
It ain't a race, is it?
No evidence to suggest
I can't help it. I can't help it.
was a
Oh
final
look, there's another
baffling
piece.
radio
God, it's easy, isn't it?
It's hovering, and it's not an aircraft. These were Frederick
You little
Valentik's
shit.
final haunting words. Words which inevitably led to speculation that the young pilot had encountered a UFO. However, it was nothing more than speculation until a witness came forward with a startling first-hand account. Around the time of Valentik's disappearance, the eyewitness and his family were returning from an afternoon outing when they noticed unusual activity in the sky.
Hey, that's a plane.
I can see the plane. It's the green light above the plane. Up there.
The witness has asked that we not reveal his identity.
I looked up and I saw this lime green light, about 1,000 to 2,000 feet above the aircraft. So we sat there and watched it for a few seconds, and the green light got closer to the plane. I said, that plane is coming down pretty steep. I said, on a 45-degree angle. I said, I think it's going to crash.
Well.
You fell.
The eyewitness account appeared to support the theory that Valentik had a run-in with a UFO. However, the witness did not actually
What? It's
see
not
the
my
aircraft
fault.
crash into Bass
Well,
Strait.
I
The
did
pieces
most
just,
of it.
yeah, the pieces just
Valentik
fell
had
into
vanished.
place, and then it was just
Then
amazing.
6 weeks later, an amateur photographer came forward with evidence that some believed confirmed the presence of a UFO over Bass Strait. On the evening
I'm
of the
helping
flight,
you.
Roy Manifold had been setting up to shoot
you're
a
just being
sunset at Cape
sarcastic.
Otway,
No, I'm not.
almost directly
You
under
sure are.
I
Valentik's flight
sure
path.
am, yes, not.
Ah!
Everything was fine and done the normal thing, you know. We just had the camera on automatic exposure,
Git.
and I took these 6 photographs of the sun disappearing into the sea.
When developed, the last of Manifold's photographs displayed a peculiar blemish.
I observed this mark on the print. It looks like a developing error or something. You know, they've mucked it up. And I said, just a minute, that was taken that night I took that sunset is exactly the night that this guy disappeared.
A leading Australian photo lab found neither dirt nor damage on the negative, determining that the strange mark was actually in the picture. The film was later sent to the United States for computer analysis by a team of UFO researchers. They claimed that the blot was actually a solid metallic object. To them, it appeared to be enveloped in a cloud of exhaust situated about a mile from the camera. However, a second, more recent analysis concluded that the spot is in all probability a developing error. Even so, Roy Manifold is inclined to believe the photograph does show something of consequence.
Unfortunately, I didn't see it, and I didn't hear anything that particular night either. First time I've had something on any of my printing, and I've done thousands of photographs, and without any incidents of anything like that on them.
Skeptics tend to dismiss the photograph as just another far-fetched effort to prove the existence of visitors from outer space. But even for those who are not prone to believe in UFOs, the events of October 21st, 1978 continue to defy explanation.
There's been no recovery of any wreckage.
No, you're
of
not.
course he has gone. So we're left with an open case, which sounds very much like he did encounter something very mysterious. And there's no other conclusion that I can come to other than that.
It is hard. I'm very sentimental. I'm keeping everything that was belonged to him. Even the motor car he was driving to the airport, I'm still driving. And I believe that my son, it possibly one day will come back. And this is a dream that might come true one day.
15 years have passed since Frederick Valentick flew off to his uncertain fate. However, the questions raised by his mysterious disappearance are just as disturbing today. What exactly did Valentick see in the minutes before radio contact was lost?
This thing's just stationary.
What was a brilliant green light seen hovering over the Cessna? And did that same light somehow overpower Valentick's plane as it vanished from view? Perhaps the secret of Frederick Valentick does lie many fathoms beneath Bass Strait. Or perhaps it lies far from our planet, light years beyond our understanding. December 22nd, 1991, Goose Creek, South Carolina. At 10:30 p.m., a speeding car with 3 men inside was pulled over on a desolate road leading to the local marina.
I approached the vehicle on the driver's side and said, "Good evening, could I see your license and registration?" At that point, I got virtually no response.
Could I see your license and registration,
I figured
please?
maybe he didn't hear me, so I asked him again.
Sir, could I see your license and registration, please?
Muéstrame tus papeles. The person in the back seat said something in a foreign language, which I think was Spanish. The driver then responded by reaching across to the glove box and pulling out what turned out to be a passport.
Your paperwork back, sir.
I told him to slow it down and be careful. I never got any response from him. He never said yes or thank you. The 2 guys in the front seat never spoke a word.
The next morning, Officer Belanger was surprised to learn that the 2 men in the front seat of the car he had stopped were supposedly missing at sea, the focus of an intense month-long search by the Coast Guard. The men were French sailors, 37-year-old Yves Emmanuel Pin and 24-year-old Laurent Hernard, hired to convoy a French-made sailboat to new owners. In October of 1991, They had embarked on a 2,500-mile voyage from Annapolis, Maryland to Guadeloupe in the West Indies. Their vessel was a state-of-the-art Antigua catamaran worth $200,000. The boat was perhaps the most sophisticated of its kind, strapped to the gills with high-tech radar, a satellite tracking unit, and electronic navigational equipment. The Antigua's unique construction made it unsinkable and virtually undetectable to radar, a perfect vessel for transporting weapons or drugs.
Hi, Rocket.
Yves Emmanuel and Laurent planned to sail down the Chesapeake Bay, around Cape Hatteras, and parallel to the east coast of the U.S. before jumping to their final destination, Guadeloupe. When the Antigua failed to arrive on schedule, the Coast Guard was notified.
We searched for a little over 2 weeks. We also alerted all the cutters and aircraft who searched throughout the Caribbean every day for other things. Never saw one sight of the vessel. It never showed up. I've never seen it since.
However, the Coast Guard did discover that the Antigua was sighted a number of times, several miles off course in the intracoastal waterway. The waterway is a protected inland passage which stretches from New England through Florida. Nobody can explain what the boat was doing there.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I'm Rocket.
In December of
How you doing?
1991, two of Yves Emmanuel's friends flew from France to South Carolina to launch their own investigation. Jean-Yves Lalinac and Isabelle Citer began by retracing the catamaran's route. Their first stop was a bridge 90 miles north of Charleston, South Carolina.
Hi, bonjour. How are you?
How can I help you? Yes, you can. We are looking for this French boat that disappeared on the waterway in November. Oh, an Antigua 37, sure.
The bridge tender remembered seeing the two missing sailors. Surprisingly, he also revealed there was a third man on the boat.
A third person was not supposed to be on board. The fact that they did not contact the captain.
Greg Flynn is a local yachtsman who helped in the search.
Plans, or that there was someone else aboard, or that they had any trouble indicates that something happened that had not been planned for.
The mysterious third passenger was cited by at least 5 different witnesses. Each reported that the man did not seem threatening, leading to rumors that perhaps one or both of the Frenchmen had been involved in stealing the boat. But their families and friends vehemently dismissed that scenario.
C'est vraiment pas le genre de personne à faire ça. Surtout pas en
Truly, Yves Emmanuel is not the type of person who would do something like that. He was training someone he didn't know beforehand and felt responsible, both for the boat and for Laurent. It's impossible that Yves Emmanuel would have involved Laurent in some dangerous adventure, even if it meant making enormous sums of money.
Jean-Yves is convinced that the stranger, perhaps aided by an armed hidden accomplice, hijacked the Antigua, but did not know how to sail it.
If the purpose was simply to steal the boat, they would have just killed Yves Emmanuel and Laurent, thrown them overboard. There must have been a reason for keeping them alive, and logically, that seems to be just to keep the boat going.
Yves Emmanuel Pin and Laurent Hernat were last seen on the boat 30 miles south of Charleston, South Carolina. 5 weeks later, they were pulled over in the speeding car. Was the man in the back seat the mysterious third passenger? Perhaps Yves Emmanuel and Laurent were being held against their will.
I'm fine. I'm just planting minefields.
Perhaps, though it seems unlikely, they fooled everyone and made off with a $200,000 prize.
Yeah, I had a chilled out day.
Next, a father embarks on a desperate quest to prove to authorities that his son did not commit suicide.
And I was going to do the garden.
Yeah, it's supposed to do the garden and it's just rained non-stop.
So it's like, sod it.
And plus I was waiting in for deliveries, so...
Sunday, June 30th, 1991.
Oh, deliveries.
Galesburg, Illinois. Longtime residents Larry and Lois Williams had finally given in to 2 days of worry.
If he doesn't answer the door,
I'm gonna go inside.
They had been trying to reach their 23-year-old son, Danny, since early Saturday morning.
Doc, I think I can get into the kitchen. Danny? This is your dad.
I kept calling Danny's name, saying, Danny, this is your dad. This is me coming in, because he did have a gun in the house for protection, and I didn't want to be in a situation where he was asleep and shot his own dad. My first thought in looking at him is that he was not alive. He was sitting on the couch in an upright position with a bullet in his head and a gun in his lap. So the comment that I made as I went through the door, oh, Dan, don't let this be what it looks like.
What is Gary doing wrong to you?
Danny Williams was Larry and Lois's youngest son. For 2 years, Danny had managed distribution for the family's multi-million-dollar apparel manufacturing company. He had recently bought his first house, the house where he died. Larry Williams called the Galesburg police.
Well, it's a 9mm semi-automatic pistol.
The position of the body, the type of wound,
Yeah,
the absence of any specific evidence of foul play indicated to us that the gunshot wound
I'm on the game.
Not
could have been
literally.
and caused us to...
I'm on the game. That's what I was saying.
I grew up in the South handling guns. I know how guns operate. I've shot every kind that there is. And it would be almost impossible for an individual to have shot themselves and have a bullet or a gun laying in their lap in the position this was. It just wasn't natural.
Convinced that his son had not committed suicide, Larry Williams hired a private detective, Mike Turnquist. The time of Danny's death had been estimated to be 2:30 a.m. on Saturday. But Turnquist immediately found a neighbor who said she had seen Danny several hours later at approximately 10:30 a.m.
Good morning, Mrs. Sayers. My name is Mike Turnquist, I'm a private investigator, and I'm working on the death of Danny Williams.
I shouldn't admit it, but I watch everybody's business. It was Saturday morning that I saw Danny get in the car with this woman. So naturally, being nosy as I am, I looked her over real good. She had dark hair. She would have been between 25 and 30.
The police knew that Danny, whose license had been revoked, was picked up by his mother on Friday, a day before he died. They believed Mrs. Sayers had her days mixed up.
No, it was not Friday, it was Saturday. And the lady in the blue car was too young to have been his mother.
Oh, I ordered some off Temu, didn't I?
Several witnesses had also noticed activity in Danny's house on Sunday, a full 24 hours after the estimated time of death. One of the people later seen outside the house was a young man with curly brown hair, approximately 5 feet 4 inches tall.
The eyewitness testimony can easily be mistaken.
£3, odd.
They may have seen some activity there, but it's a distinct possibility that the days may have been confused.
Is that your new box?
Seen
that.
That
You stolen the box what the new keyboard came in.
Danny's father claims that some of the physical evidence turned up by the police themselves seemed to argue against suicide. The bullet which they believe had killed Danny exited through his head and lodged in the wall. Curiously, when the police removed the bullet, there was only one small spot which appeared to be blood on the paneling.
With the head being that close to the wall, you most certainly would expect to find large or massive amounts of blood splatter, either at or near the back of the couch, and most certainly on the back wall.
We don't necessarily agree that there would have to be a large quantity of blood behind him. The theory that there would have to be a large amount of blood is based on, in some cases, based on what's seen in the movies and what's seen on television, and that's not necessarily consistent with what happens in fact.
Larry Williams next brought in an independent forensic scientist, Mark Bosley, to determine whether someone else had been in the house when Danny died.
I had this feeling that I was going to go out, see the house, see a typical messy scene, and tell Larry that I think your son committed suicide. From the pictures of Danny, it did look like a contact wound in the forehead. So I could go with a suicide possibly or an execution. When we get to the house and there's a lack of evidence to support the suicide. Oh, hey Larry, you better take a look at this.
Bosie used a laser luminescence scanner to search out organic matter, including blood, which might not be apparent to the naked eye. He discovered evidence of blood in several places, even on the television set.
Wow. Take a look at that splatter pattern all over the TV set. If Danny just shot himself sitting there, you definitely would not have a pattern at all behind the TV set. And there's nothing to indicate Danny got up after shooting himself and walked around. So someone else obviously dropped the blood droplets everywhere else that we found. I'm gonna have to take a swabbing of that, bring it back to the lab, get it typed.
The blood found on and behind the television is still awaiting tests by a forensic scientist who specializes in blood pattern analysis. However, samples found in other parts of the house have been typed. Danny Williams' blood was type B. Mark Bosie found type B and type O blood in the den where Danny's body was. Oddly, Bosie also found type O blood in the bathroom and inside the pocket of Danny's jeans.
It is not possible that all the blood in the room came from Danny. It's an impossibility. This evidence suggests to me that two people in the room were bleeding. Two separate individuals.
The official police position is that the alleged type O blood samples had been compromised when the crime scene was cleaned. According to the Illinois State Crime Lab, the adulterated samples could not be typed definitively.
I would begin to question their procedures if they claimed that they did not find type O blood on the evidence. I could guarantee you'd send that same evidence to 5 different independent laboratories that have no idea what this case is about, that have no idea that this was a murder or a suicide or anything, and they will come back with type B blood and type O blood.
The police also point out that there was no way to determine how long the alleged type O blood had been there. Further, they say that Mark Bosie's samples, taken 6 weeks after Danny's death, were not fresh enough to type.
Yeah, I don't know why they would argue the point. King Tut was typed for blood, and he's how many thousands of years old?
The independent lab feels very confident in their results. They have provided those results to Mr. Williams, and that's contributed to his concerns about the finding of suicide. We feel just as strongly about the results of the Illinois State Crime Lab, that there was no evidence of a type O blood in that home.
Mark Bosie's investigation appeared to turn up a piece of evidence which had been previously overlooked and which supported the theory that the blood of 2 different people was shed in Danny's house.
It's the same type that Danny's gun would use.
Mark was processing the room. He opened the couch up and a shell casing fell out. Later tests showed that this shell did come from Danny's gun. It had been recently fired. So there were 2 shells found on the couch that came from Danny's gun. Okay, now we tried to analyze this and decide, well, did Danny shoot someone? Did someone else use Danny's gun and shoot him?
From the scene photos I saw, Danny's gun was laying on his lap, his hand was laying on top of the gun, just as if he shot and then set it back down. It's a little inconsistent with a suicide. Okay, Larry, I set up the rod here in line with the bullet path through the wall. Now I'm gonna get down and try to get my head in line with the bullet path in the wall. How am I doing?
Well, you're low enough, but you got to point the gun more toward the wall.
I can't do it. I can't squeeze off. The only way I can think of holding the weapon in this manner. Okay, how am I doing?
Yeah, the line's right.
All right, and it's through my head, and it can be squeezed off.
But you would fall over on the floor.
I would fall over on the floor. The body would have gone forward. The body would have moved back into the position it was in. The gun probably would not have been in his lap. It probably would be on the floor at a coffee table.
Our investigation indicated that the position of the hole in the wall was consistent with the way the body was found, primarily based on the fact that we again can't say specifically how the individual was sitting and exactly where on the couch he was sitting at the time the weapon was discharged.
Mark Posey has come to believe that Danny was probably not shot in the den. One theory is that there was an altercation somewhere else, during which Danny's blood and another person's was spilled. Perhaps that person took Danny's keys out of his pocket, leaving behind a trace of type O blood. Finally, the crime scene was arranged to make Danny's death look like a suicide.
We can advance theories all day long. Everyone can. But the factual data that we've gathered, we feel comfortable with.
Well, he picked up a gun and he...
According to the police, there was one final fact to support the suicide ruling. They say that Danny Williams' girlfriend described an argument which had also resulted in a shooting incident 6 months before Danny's death.
He had placed a weapon, a handgun, to his head. She then turned and started to leave the room and heard the weapon discharge and found that he had discharged the weapon into a wall. So apparently, he had considered this act before, he had discussed this act before, and it had taken, I think would have to be considered a substantial step towards that act by the discharge of the weapon during the argument.
What it appears has happened is they have come up with a conclusion and then they've gone to a great degree of effort to try to support their theory that they put together. Had they put as much effort into trying to find out what the truth was and what happened, they would be working along the same lines that the family is today. Fact.
Danny, this is your dad.
The investigators, crime labs and what have you that I've had working on this from the beginning, as soon as they went into the house, saw evidence that was in there then and is still there now, were convinced that I was that it was cold-blooded murder.
In this most perplexing case, one issue has never been addressed. If Danny Williams was murdered, who killed him and why? Questions even his father has been unable to answer. Next week, Unsolved Mysteries travels to Russia to investigate the fascinating mystery of Anastasia. She was a beautiful teenage daughter of the last Tsar of Russia, Nicholas II. History holds that the entire imperial family was executed in the aftermath of the Bolshevik Revolution. But years later, a woman named Anna Anderson turned up in Germany claiming that she was Anastasia, and many believe she had the evidence to prove it. Her incredible claim sparked a 35-year court battle for the Tsar's legacy of $80 million. Join me next time for this intriguing journey to turn-of-the-century Russia and more on Unsolved Mysteries.
This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you're about to see is not a news broadcast.
It was Christmas 45 years ago. Sympathetic deputies transformed the jail in Henry County, Illinois, into a sanctuary for a destitute mother, Hilda Cron, and her family. But within weeks, the simple act of charity would backfire when 7 of Hilda's 9 children were separated and put up for adoption. Barbara Pasiak was thrilled when her daughter Paula brought her boyfriend home for a Imagine the vast arid deserts of the American West flowering into a modern-day Garden of Eden. Incredible as it seems, a former rocket scientist believes he has found a vast underground river in Nevada that could create just such a transformation. After World War II, a trusting Polish couple sent their only son off to America with friends. They had no idea that they would never see him again. In Los Angeles, Ted Losef, a prominent surgeon, was found dead in his garage. The police ruled suicide, but Ted's mother, Zell, was not convinced. Disturbed by the odd behavior of Ted's wife, Zell began to suspect that her son had been targeted for murder. Zell Losef embarked on her own investigation. An investigation that ultimately forced authorities to reclassify her son's death. Perhaps someone watching tonight will have that one vital clue that could help end Zell Losef's odyssey. Join me. Perhaps you may be able to help solve a mystery.
The doorbell rang at 10 o'clock at night, and my daughter and her husband were at the door. I was startled. Company at 10, but when I took a look at their face, I knew I was going to hear something awful.
On February 25th, 1974, Zell Losef of Los Angeles, California, sat numbly through the funeral of her only son, Ted. 2 days earlier, the 40-year-old orthopedic surgeon had apparently taken his own life. Zell was devastated. In her grief, she could not have imagined what lay ahead. An all-consuming 19-year investigation into her son's death that would ultimately force authorities to back down from the official finding of suicide.
Of all people in the world, Ted was not one to take his life. My son was murdered.
Okay, Rocket. Catch you later.
Catch you later, Rocket.
Have fun.
The night Ted Losef died, police found a suicide note, apparently written to his wife, Wilda. The note said simply, "All I ever asked for was one moment of compassion and understanding." Zell Losef now believes the note was a finishing touch in a plot to cover up the murder of her son.
Congratulations, Ted. This is quite a setup.
Well, thanks a lot, Bob. I'm very proud of it.
Ted Losef was already a well-respected surgeon when he moved his practice in 1971.
Come on back here. I'll give you the quarter tour.
During a private reception at his new offices, Ted was introduced to a nurse named Wilda Lloyd.
You know Dr. Ted Losef?
No, we don't know.
This is Wilda Lloyd.
Wilda Lloyd, how do you do?
Ted and Wilda were married less than a year later. At Ted's insistence, Wilda signed a prenuptial agreement. She would get no property if the marriage ended in divorce. Within 6 months, that seemed increasingly likely.
What difference does it make? Oh, I know. 50, 100, 200.
She had problems with alcohol, and it wasn't good. I soon learned that the marriage was a marriage not of love. Wilda would go into histrionics and scream and yell and carry on. The fighting was just awful.
It's not fair to throw that in my face. I've got to go out and live. You're not gonna...
Apparently, the bitter arguing plagued the marriage up until the day Ted Losef died, February 23rd, 1974.
Officer!
Just relax.
Officer, you have to help me. My husband, he's got a gun.
That evening, at around 8 p.m., an anxious Wilda Losef had called police, saying her husband was armed.
Officer, let's go inside.
Is there keys? The house
May I have the keys?
Waiting with Wilda were Edward J., a family friend, and the Losif's housekeeper. Ted didn't answer, and there was no sign of him anywhere in the house.
Well, I don't know where he is, but he's definitely not here. Usually parks outside the gates out there.
Yeah, we'll file a report.
You knew that? Around the side here.
Oh, no. Ted! Stay back.
They found him in his car in the garage. It had to be suicide. It wasn't until a little later, when things began to become so suspicious, that I wondered about it.
The car was running, the victim was behind the wheel, and this hose was in the tailpipe and fed in through the window.
To authorities on the scene, the evidence of suicide was overwhelming, and there was no further investigation. No fingerprints were taken. No autopsy was performed. No questions were asked.
I looked for Ted in the house.
In the days following Ted's death, Zell and Wilda rarely spoke. When they did finally meet face to face in March of 1974, Zell was totally unprepared for Wilda's behavior. Zell had asked Wilda for a keepsake, a watch she had given her son as a wedding present.
It must be hard to talk about. I know you're worried about this.
I wasn't worried about this.
Look, Zell, I didn't care about Ted the way you did. I'm glad he's gone.
Wilda's harsh comments had awakened unfocused suspicions in Zell, and her grief was slowly overtaken by doubts. She began to feel that something was not quite right about the suicide scene. Incredibly, Zell says the discrepancies finally became clear to her in a dream. She recalled that Ted had never parked his car in the garage.
I saw a garage filled with lots and lots of boat equipment, cartons of boxes, and I realized I was at Ted's garage. And I knew that to put his car there, it had to move the things that were in that garage. Ted had back surgery. It was impossible for him physically. And then I saw the gates, these great big double old iron gates.
In her dream, Zell remembered that the driveway gates were damaged and difficult to open. Ted had always parked in front of the house. To Zell, the implications of the dream were simple but stunning. Someone had cleared out the garage and pried open the gates. The suicide had been staged, her son murdered in cold blood. Zell's suspicions alone were not nearly enough to get the case reopened. Taking matters into her own hands, she tracked down her son's former housekeeper. Her account of Ted's last day would confirm Zell's worst fears.
Hello. Yes, I'm Zell Losif, and I've been looking for the housekeeper who worked for my son Ted.
Oh, Mrs. Losif.
To protect her identity, we will call the housekeeper Mary. The following recreations are based on her sworn testimony before a Los Angeles County coroner's inquest.
Well, I was supposed to arrive at 8:30, but I didn't get there until around 10, and when I arrived, Dr. Losif was in the kitchen.
Turn gas lines.
Oh, that's okay.
I hope your wife isn't angry that I wasn't here earlier.
She's not going to be around here anymore. We had a little misunderstanding, and we're going to be getting a divorce.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. But around 2 o'clock, she came in. She parked her car directly in front of the door, and then she went right upstairs. And then a few minutes later, I heard all this screaming and yelling.
What in the world is going on? Dr. Lawson, let her go! Let go of my hand. Here, you can have your money back. He's got a gun. I'm scared. Do you have a gun, Dr. Lawson?
She's crazy. Wilda!
And I said, if you want me to continue to work with you, you'll have to talk to my husband. So he paid me for my work, and I got in my car and I drove down the street, and there was Mrs. Lawson.
Mrs. Lawson, what are you doing? Oh my God, Mary, what am I going to do? I can't go back there.
And then she asked me if she could go with me, and I said, well, yes. So I drove home. She kept insisting that Dr. Losif had a gun, so I called the police. No, officer. No, I'm not the wife. Well, she said that he had a gun.
He had a gun. I saw a gun.
She insists that he has a gun. Why don't you come talk to me? They told me that they couldn't go over there if I hadn't seen a gun, and I hadn't seen it. Thank you, officer. I'm going to call Dr. Losif.
Mary says she tried to call Ted at least 20 times between 3 and 8 p.m. Every time, the line was busy.
About 8 o'clock, I called Dr. Losif again. It's ringing, finally. No one's answering. I'm going to call the police again.
Within the hour, police had found Ted's body. Their initial belief that he killed himself was confirmed by the discovery of the note in an upstairs bedroom. However, to Mary, it was the first of several alarming discrepancies.
I always thought that that note on the shirt cardboard was kind of strange, because I had been ironing Dr. Losif's shirts for a long time, and I always used a hanger. I never used a shirt cardboard.
What are you saying? As she stood with her husband and gazed at Dr. Losif's body, Mary was jarred by another inconsistency.
When I last saw him, he was wearing brown pants and a kind of a mustard shirt. And now he had on gray pants and a dress shirt. And do you know, that whole time that I worked there, after Dr. Losif died, I never once saw those brown pants and that mustard-colored shirt that he was wearing the last time I saw him.
The discrepancies became impossible to ignore. In the kitchen, Mary found several empty beer cans and 4 dirty glasses. Ted Losif rarely drank.
Mrs. Lawson, can you come here a minute, please?
A week later, Mary found unusual stains on some bedspreads in the guest room.
This looks like vomit.
Oh, yes, this is the dog's vomit. They were sick last night.
However, Mary remembers the dogs being in a kennel at that time. When she later washed the bedspreads, the vomit spots completely disintegrated.
After hearing the housekeeper's many stories, I knew there was foul play and something terrible happened to Ted, and that I had to find out.
There is evidence of food fiber in the bronchi of the lungs.
In 1978, 4 years after her son's death, Zell finally won a legal battle to have Ted's body exhumed for an autopsy. The pathologist found undeniable evidence that Ted had suffered a violent vomiting spell in the moments before his death.
There should have been vomitus on his clothing, his face, and perhaps on the inside of the car. Why wasn't it there? This certainly strongly suggests to me that this vomiting occurred someplace other than in the car. And there were a number of discrepancies that have never been explained, but that very strongly move away from the whole thought of suicide. This, until proven otherwise, is a homicide.
Fueled by the autopsy findings, Zell pieced together a theory explaining her son's death, a scenario of premeditated murder. Zell believes Ted was assaulted soon after Wilda and Mary left the house.
I believe that the people that killed my son were close to the wife because they knew that that back door would be open.
The autopsy indicated Ted had been involved in a struggle. Zell believes he was overpowered by at least 2 men who forced poison down his throat.
Ted was definitely fighting for his life, according to the doctors. Somebody took the phone off after they made sure he was dead because it took a certain length of time for this to happen. It could be 5, 6, 7 minutes. Then they cleaned him up and they put his gray dress shirt on him. Then they went to the garage, emptied out the garage to make room for the car. Then they had to open the gates to put his car into this garage, carry his dead body into that garage, close the door, and then go out and close the gates. Then they went back into the house, I think again, put the receiver back on the hook.
It's ringing, finally.
All afternoon, Mary had been getting busy signals when she tried to call Ted. Now the phone was suddenly ringing. Zell believes that this was a prearranged message from the killers to Wilda, that their job was done. In March of 1982, the Los Angeles County coroner finally ordered an inquest. Zell's murder scenario, which many had dismissed as a grieving mother's fantasy, began to gain credibility. At the inquest, a witness who knew the family testified that the note, the alleged suicide note, was indeed written by Ted. However, he had written it after an argument with Wilda more than 2 years before he died. The inquest ultimately ruled that Ted Lossoff's death was a homicide, but the most critical witness in the subsequent investigation would soon be lost forever. On May 1st, 1983, Wilda died from an overdose of drugs and alcohol. More than 2 years later, the police completed their inquiry. They ruled that the cause of Ted Lossoff's death was undetermined. However, Zell Lossoff is convinced that someone has gotten away with murder. She is still hopeful a witness will come forward with new information.
If the case would open up and they'd really get the criminal, there'll be a peacefulness that'll come on me, I hope. A desire to walk, to sing, to laugh. I hadn't been able to. If I can do that again, that's it.
Next, controversy surrounds a modern-day prospector and his claim that he has found a vast untapped water supply in the middle of the desert. Even in a good year, precious little rain will fall in the rugged deserts of the western United States. What doesn't evaporate instantly is quickly soaked up by the few plants and animals evolution has sentenced to live here. However, numerous legends have sprouted in this otherwise infertile land. Tales such as the Lost Dutchman's Mine or the missing gold of Peg Leg Smith. In 1927, a prospector named Earl Dorr drove deep into the Nevada desert, lured by an old Indian legend. It told of a secret cavern leading to an underground river that sparkled with nuggets of gold. Earl Dorr was just crazy enough to believe he could find it. According to an affidavit Dorr later published, he and his sidekick eventually found the secret opening foretold in the legend and squeezed on through. The The affidavit recounts a treacherous 3,500-foot descent into a murky subterranean canyon. Earl claimed that at the bottom they found the legendary river, running as promised far below the cactus and the scorpions. Earl said they explored for 4 days, following the river for 8 long miles. Along every foot of it, nature had slowly concentrated vast amounts of gold.
That's all I'm gonna do today. I will be live later on. It's coming along. It's getting there. Slowly. But still. I will see you guys later on. Much love to you all. Take care now. Bye everybody. See you later, alligator. Bye everybody.